You can't control her. You can only control yourself. That truth cuts deep, especially when emotions run high. When she pulls away, when her tone changes, when her words sting, your first instinct is to react, to fix, to argue, to explain. You tell yourself that if you can just say the right thing, if you can just make her see, then everything will return to balance. But Stoicism whispers a quieter, far more powerful truth. Peace is internal, not external. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we suffer more in our imagination than in reality, and nowhere is that truer than in love. When you hand your emotions over to her behavior, you're no longer leading yourself, you're being led. Her mood becomes your weather, her silence your storm. But imagine standing in that same moment, the argument, the distance, the chaos, and feeling centered, unmoved, grounded in your own calm. That's not indifference, that's power. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotion, it's about mastering it. Because once you stop trying to control what's beyond you, you regain control over the one thing that truly matters, yourself. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, philosopher, and man constantly surrounded by crisis, never had the luxury of peace. Betrayal, war, and personal loss defined his world. Yet his private journal, later known as Meditations, reads like a blueprint for inner stillness amidst external chaos. Marcus didn't preach detachment as escape. He practiced self-governance as strength. The Stoics believe that the world is filled with things within our control, our thoughts, actions, and character, and things beyond it, other people, fate, outcomes. Wisdom lies in knowing the difference. In relationships, this philosophy becomes razor sharp. You can't control her emotions, her past, or her choices. You can't make her love you more by trying harder or pleasing deeper. What you can control is your integrity, your composure, your response. Marcus often reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. When he wrote those words, he was reminding himself that mastery over self is the only true power. Everything else is illusion. Applied to love, Stoicism is not cold, it's courageous. It means showing up with presence, honesty, and calm, even when things don't go your way. It means choosing response over reaction. When she tests your patience or pulls away, you can lose yourself in frustration, or you can anchor yourself in discipline. The Stoic path says, be the unmoved mover. Marcus didn't want control over others. He sought harmony within. And that's the paradox. When you stop trying to control, you start to attract, because people sense stability. They gravitate to it. In a world addicted to emotional chaos, calm becomes magnetic. Control your reaction, not her behavior. This is the quiet, brutal power that separates emotional chaos from emotional mastery. In most relationships, control becomes an invisible battlefield. You try to control her reaction so you can feel safe. She tries to control your responses so she can feel secure. And slowly, without anyone realizing it, the relationship becomes a tug of war for emotional dominance. Stoicism slices through that game like a blade through fog. It teaches that you don't win by pulling harder, you win by letting go of the rope. When she withdraws, criticizes, tests, or changes, your mind immediately wants to react. That impulse is primal. It's the ego's desperate attempt to regain certainty. But reacting doesn't make things better, it makes things smaller. You start tailoring your words, your energy, even your identity around her behavior. And in doing so,
you hand over the steering wheel of your emotional state to someone else. Stoicism says, keep the wheel. The Stoics, especially Marcus Aurelius, drew a clear line between what is within your control and what isn't. Thoughts, actions, principles, those are yours. Her moods, her feelings, her choices, those are not. And once you internalize that line, everything shifts. Think of it like a storm. You can't stop the wind, you can't command the rain, but you can build the shelter, light a fire, and stay centered inside your space. Your emotional state becomes that shelter. When she tests or pushes, which is inevitable in any intimate dynamic, your role isn't to control her. It's to remain solid, grounded, and aligned with your own values. This is what emotional leadership looks like. Not loud dominance, not cold detachment, quiet, unwavering strength. People often misunderstand Stoicism in love. They think it means not caring. It doesn't. It means caring deeply, but refusing to let that care control you. When you build your emotional stability around her reactions, your attraction loses its spine. But when your calm comes from within, your presence becomes magnetic. Why? Because stability is rare. In a world where everyone reacts, the one who responds stands out. There's another layer to this idea. When you stop trying to control her, you create space for authenticity. If she loves you, it's because of who you are, not how perfectly you manage her moods. If she leaves, it's not because you failed to perform emotional acrobatics, it's because your truth didn't align. Either way, you stay grounded. Stoicism in relationships is not about winning arguments. It's about owning your inner kingdom. Your values set the tone. Your composure leads the energy. Your reactions, or lack thereof, create the emotional climate. She may storm, she may test, she may pull away, and through it all, you remain. That's power. The moment you stop reacting to control, you start responding from strength, and that changes the entire dynamic. Suddenly, you're not chasing, you're leading. You're not bending, you're standing. And here's the paradox. The less you need to control, the more respect, trust, and attraction naturally flow. Because people trust what's unshakable. Control your reaction, guard your peace, lead with calm. That is Stoicism. That is power in love.
You've probably been there. The fight that spiraled too far, the text you wish you hadn't sent, the silence that made your thoughts go wild. You felt powerless, desperate to fix what was never yours to fix. Maybe you felt the pull of that emotional trap, where every mood shift feels like a judgment, every distance feels like rejection. You start walking on eggshells, trying to keep everything fine. But deep down, you feel your power slipping away. Stoicism offers a way out, not by changing her, but by changing your response. Imagine feeling that same tension rise, but instead of reacting, you breathe. You center yourself. You observe the emotion without becoming it. That's not coldness, that's control. That's self-respect. And when you master that, everything changes. You stop chasing peace from someone else because you've already found it within.
Here's the paradox most people never grasp in love. The more you try to control someone, the less power you actually have. Your emotional state becomes a hostage to their moods, their words, their silence. But when you release the need to control, something strange happens.
your inner power returns. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, understood this perfectly. True strength isn't found in making someone stay, change, or love you harder. It's in mastering your own response to what happens, especially when it's not what you wanted. This is where the real shift happens. Instead of being consumed by their actions, you anchor yourself in your own principles. Instead of spiraling when they pull away, you remain calm. Instead of overreacting to tests, games, or indifference, you hold your center. Ironically, this quiet, unshakable strength often draws people closer, not because you manipulated the outcome, but because confidence born from self-mastery is magnetic. The moment you stop demanding control over what isn't yours is the moment you gain command over what truly matters, yourself. In every heated moment, you're standing at a crossroads. React impulsively or respond deliberately. Stoicism gives you the discipline to choose the latter. When she says something that stings, when she withdraws, when she tests the edges of your composure, your instinct may scream, do something. But power doesn't come from chasing or controlling. It comes from holding your ground. Start by mastering the pause. A pause is not weakness. It's a shield. When emotion hits, breathe. Let the initial wave pass before you speak or act. This is how you stop giving away your power in a moment of chaos. Then, set boundaries with quiet certainty. Boundaries aren't ultimatums or threats. They're a declaration of self-respect. You're not trying to change her behavior. You're deciding what you will and won't tolerate. You're teaching people how to treat you, not through lectures, but through action and consistency. Detach from the outcome, not in a cold, indifferent way, but in a way that says, my peace isn't negotiable. If she respects your boundaries, the relationship strengthens. If she doesn't, you walk away with your dignity intact. This is where freedom lives, not in control over someone else's emotions, but in the unwavering command over your own. The man who can respond instead of react is the man no one can emotionally break.
Right now, you might see yourself as someone who's constantly trying to fix situations, chasing emotional balance through her moods, her reactions, her validation. But Stoicism invites a radical shift. Stop being the reactor and become the center. When you embrace this philosophy, you stop being the man who loses sleep over every cold text, every emotional storm, every uncertain silence. Instead, you become the calm in the chaos, a man anchored, not tossed around by every wave. Her actions no longer define your emotional state. Your response does. Picture this. When conflict arises, you don't spiral, overthink, or beg for reassurance. You stand firm, composed, and grounded in your values. You know that your worth isn't dependent on her approval. That quiet, steady presence is magnetic. It commands respect without needing to demand it. You shift from seeking control to radiating control, not over her, but over yourself. And that changes everything. Conversations stop being battles to win and start becoming moments where your character speaks louder than your words. You'll notice something powerful. People start treating you differently, not because you've become colder, but because you've become unshakable. Your energy no longer leaks through insecurity. You stepped into a role most never claim, the man who leads with grounded strength. That's the transformation Stoicism offers, from emotional turbulence to inner dominance. Not dominance over others,
but over the one thing you truly own: yourself.
If this hits something deep in you, don't just nod and scroll. This isn't about memorizing Stoic quotes or pretending to be unbothered. This is about stepping into a new way of being. A way where you no longer hand your power to someone else's moods, opinions, or love. You've probably spent too much time trying to control the uncontrollable. Chasing clarity, chasing validation, chasing emotional certainty that never lasts. But the moment you stop chasing, something shifts. You stop being a passenger in your own emotional life. You become the driver. This isn't just a mindset. It's a stance, a posture, a way of moving through love and conflict without losing yourself. And the truth is, few ever get here. Most people spend their lives reacting. But those who choose Stoic strength, they build their own gravity. So here's the challenge. Tag someone who needs this reminder. Someone who's losing themselves trying to hold on. Share this with the friend who needs to hear that control isn't found in her hands. It's found in his heart. If you felt that shift inside you, even for a moment, drop a shield in the comments. Because this isn't just a video. This is the beginning of you reclaiming your power. Quiet, focused, unshakable. Stoic.